Just a dick shitting moron, shitting dicks for all the world to see. Just a dick shitting moron, shitting dicks like counting ABCs.
Hey guys, Creepy Kentuckian here with you, and I had an idea to do this video. I don't know where it came from, it just popped in my head and I thought it would be an interesting idea. I know that we have talked about this sort of thing on the show every once in a while, but I figured it would be a good, maybe a lot of people can post video responses and stuff, and it's an interesting story for other people. Basically, this video is, it might be a series of videos I do on YouTube or something every once in a while if I get bored. It can happen. It happens from time to time. Movie memories, folks. Movie memories. And this first segment I want to do on the memories of movies, past, present, whatever. Is how I got into horror films, and it happened at a really young age for me. A lot of people will probably be shocked. I was 7 years old. We got a VCR, and that was a big deal where I'm at, where I was in Prestonsburg, Appalachia, Kentucky. Because even then, VHS had been around for, since the late 70s. It was a high market item in the late 70s, and they really started getting affordable around this time. And it was a big deal to finally get one, and such a big deal, and it was such a big investment then. The VCRs were still at that point $500-600. There were stores in the area that sold VCRs, and the incentive for you, the consumer, if you bought a VCR from this particular store, is they would also rent VHS movies, and they would have these deals. If you bought a VCR, you would get free movie rental, one free movie rental per week for a year. And it's not a bad deal, because a lot of the times when we would go in there and get our free movie, we would also buy, rent one, pay for it. And it was a little more difficult back then too to get a membership card, and you would have to pay fees usually to even become a member of this video store to rent movies. It was way different than it has been recently, or even in the past 10-15 years, because renting then was not as common, and the VHS, for the stores to even get the VHSs, they were extremely expensive. So I watched a lot of movies around this time period, and for some odd reason, one particular weekend, my mom decided to really freak me out, I guess, and we rented a couple of horror films. And at this point in time, I was like probably 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, something like that. I can't remember the exact year. I'd never really seen a horror film before, so she picked two good ones to start out with, I'll say that, and that's what I want to talk about primarily. The movies, they're both sequels, okay, and this was a big thing in the 1980s for horror, similar to the remake trend that we've had lately. All these movies had sequels, or the majority of them did. So there were two that I remember we got, the very first two horror videos that I ever watched. The first one was, of course, Psycho 2, which I've talked about on the show a few times, and I had seen this actually before the original Psycho, of course, And the one scene that always gets to me, and I've always talked about in that movie, was at the very end when Norman basically clocks his new mother in the back of the head with a shovel. And when I saw that, I was like, even as a kid, I was like, oh, what a sweet old lady, you know. She was trying to protect Norman and all this shit. And then, like, that just, I was like, oh my God, you just don't do that. You don't see that in movies. So, you know, that was one that that I really get nostalgic when I watch it now. I love Psycho 2. I think it's almost as good as the original Psycho, just my personal opinion. I think it's a great movie. I think Anthony Perkins improved, you know, the Norman character immensely, Norman Bates, in the sequel, and just really, I think he got way better at what he did as Norman in the sequel. And the other one, which I actually do have a little visual for you, I do have the VHS of this, and it caught my eye too, because it's an eye-catching cover too, and definitely one of the best for any of the Friday the 13th. This is Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And by this point, Friday the 13th movies were kind of losing money already, but you know, I saw this, and I didn't know what the hell it was. I didn't really know who Jason was, and I was like, it's the perfect movie too, like for a little kid. Like, well, not really, but I mean, it's like it's got so much just cool, cheesy shit in it that a little kid at the time, you know, maybe little kids now would cry and pee in their pants or something. I don't know. But I enjoyed the hell out of this, and I don't think it ever scared me. It was just cool. I just thought it was really cool the way they brought Jason back. In the beginning, you know, it was very cartoonish, and, you know, just a really fun movie. And I was hooked. I mean, this is really the movie, like, I was hooked. I had to see all the Friday the 13th. And it wasn't too much longer where I actually got to see all of them up to this point. And I was just crazy about this series. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, but that's mainstream. Yeah, I mean, but the majority of people that grew up in my era, I would say a large percentage got into horror because of this franchise here, folks. This Friday the 13th movies. They're just great. I mean, pretty much all of the Paramount Friday the 13th movies, in their own way or another, are great, in my opinion. I mean, I hold a special place in my heart even for Part 8, the last one, because that was the very first one I got to see in theaters. I remember it clearly. 9 years old, 1989, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I think I knocked my parents out of thin. I keep thinking it was Ghost, but I don't think it was Ghost. It was something like that, though. It was one of the... And me and a buddy of mine had to go see the new Friday the 13th movie. But, you know, I think that these movies, though, that I was talking about... Oh, no, I just dropped that one. They got me into the genre. And by that point, you know, I was a young kid. Video stores were way cool. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that collect VHS and stuff now that weren't fortunate enough to be around that time period to go in these small independent video stores. Mom and pop video stores is what a lot of them call them now. I never heard that phrase back when I was a kid. But you would see so many, just a variety of stuff, and it was way different then because the studios didn't really control those stores, and they could put anything out there to rent, and it was just a different time, It was a fun time to be a fan of movies in general, especially horror movies. There were so many made in the 80s. And a lot of people, a lot of uptight assholes think that we're too nostalgic at DEADPIT, and we talk about, too much of the stuff from back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And to them, I say fuck you, because this was a period when horror was at its height. It was at its peak in the 80s. The slasher films, the zombie films, all the classic films of Carpenter, Romero, Craven, Nightmare on Elm Street movies, stuff like that. It was a great time to be a fan. And just did this video so maybe some of the people out there can tell me how you got hooked on the genre, how you became a fan of horror, and the stuff that you go back to remind you how great the genre can actually be. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I may do more stuff like this in the future. Just let me know how you liked it, and I'll have more memories for you, I'm sure, because I've been doing this stuff. I've been doing the show for like 6 years, but I've been a horror fan since that day in the video store, 1987, 88, when I picked up those movies and rented them for the first time. It started there. The sickness started there. Hasn't ended. So, how did your sickness start? How did you get infected? Let me know. And thanks for watching.